Welcome to the Real News Network. I'm Anton Warrenchuk in Baltimore. The fighting has resumed between Israel and Gaza after the 72-hour ceasefire expired Friday morning. The UN has reported that a 10-year-old from Gaza City was killed in an Israeli airstrike in Gaza City shortly after the ceasefire ended, and several Israelis were reportedly wounded by mortar shrapnel. With negotiations in Cairo at a standstill, we're now joined by our two guests. Joining us from Gaza City is Dr. Khamis Elessi. Dr. Elessi is an assistant professor at the Islamic University's College of Medicine in Gaza City. Also joining us from Tel Aviv is our Middle East correspondent, Leah Tarachansky. Thank you both for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So Leah, let's start with you. The 72-hour ceasefire that expired on Friday was the longest since Operation Protective Edge began. Why was the ceasefire not extended?
Well, there's a lot of rumors and a lot of leaked information about why the ceasefire was not extended. The Palestinian side is blaming the Israelis for dragging their feet. The Israeli side is blaming the Palestinians for wanting too much. In the meantime, the Europeans, Germany, France, and England have proposed their own conditions for a stable ceasefire. And so you have here a lot of different sides pushing for the ceasefire to be extended, and a lot of different sides pulling for it to fall apart. What we do know for a fact is that a lot of pressure has been exerted on the Jordanians as the newest members of the UN Security Council to pressure for some kind of resolution to pressure Israel into stopping its war on Gaza. So far, that hasn't worked.
Okay, and Dr. Elessi, you're in Gaza City right now. What is your sense of the level of support for Hamas now that the fighting has resumed?
You can't gauge for exactly what's the level, but from the people who have lost their loved ones and they have lost their homes, those kind of people, they tend to support somebody who will resist this sort of actions and will some sort take revenge for their big losses. And when you're speaking about almost 2,000 Palestinians dead, the vast majority of them are women and children. And when you speak about almost 10,000 Palestinian injuries, of course, you can imagine the kind of resentment in the hearts of those people who have lost everything, not forgetting about more than 20,000 homes, which has been partially or totally destroyed. So the more killing you have in the streets, the more hatred will be implanted in the hearts of the people who have lost everything. And I think this will create more and more support for the militant resistance against Israel.
One person was killed in next to Ramallah, a young man from the soccer team in the Al Amari camp, making him the 16th person to die in West Bank protests in solidarity with Gaza. And when the Hamas spokesperson was delivering his speech today, my sources in the West Bank report that there's now almost total support for Hamas's stance that either Israel accept 100% of their demands or nothing at all.
And what about in Israel, Leah? What is public opinion surrounding the negotiations as well as support for the resumption of fighting?
So in Israel, you get a very varied response. In the middle of the war, which most Israelis now consider to be over, even though it never ended, it's now the 33rd day, and we're seeing that fighting is resuming, as maybe to a lower extent, but it's definitely resuming, and there was never any true signs. So the war is definitely not over. But for most Israelis who didn't experience what the Palestinians in Gaza didn't experience what the Gazans went through, most of our lives have continued as normal, except for those in the south who've been under the heaviest barrage of rockets. So even though 18 rockets were sent already by noon this morning, one of them injuring 4 people, most Israelis are completely oblivious to the reality that the Gazans are living as a result of Israeli bombardment. And so it's very easy for public opinion to support a war or to reject it. What we saw in the middle of the war is that almost 87% of Israelis said that they were against a ceasefire until the goals of the war are achieved. Now, the goals of the war have changed along the operation every time, First, the government was saying that the purpose is to restore quiet, whatever that means. Then they were saying that it's time, that the goal of the operation is to stop the rockets. Then one of the rockets hit near the airport, causing European and American airlines to cut their flights to Israel, costing Israel billions in tourism dollars. And then they changed the language from rockets to tunnels. Halfway through the war. Now, when the ceasefire went into effect on August 2nd, the first time, one of the Israeli high generals went on air saying that all of the tunnels have been destroyed, something which is not even remotely true, something which he is alone in saying, and which has now been running as a sort of echo chamber, while there's been no proof given whatsoever to that. When just the day before, a top Israeli security official was saying that there is no way to really know how many tunnels exist and how to destroy all of them. So in the mind of most Israelis, hearing again and again the repeating of this rumor that tunnels have been destroyed or that all the tunnels have been destroyed, coupled with seeing the Israeli reservists evacuate the Gaza Strip completely, half of them being sent home, in the minds of the Israelis, the war seems to be over.
Okay, and Khamis, we understand that the Islamic University in Gaza, where you teach medicine, was bombed last week. Can you talk about the effects of the assault on the educational institutions and medical services in Gaza?
Of course, the Islamic University is one of the institutions which has been affected by this inhumane war against Gaza Strip, because the part of the society who's paying the highest price for this inhumane war is the civilian population. Just imagine, the Islamic University is a university with more than 21,000 students. 70% are female students, and almost 40% or 35% are male students. And this university is considered to be the top one university in all over Palestine over the last 7 years, and considered to be the number 10 all over the Arab world. And most of our students have harvested international medals and prizes worldwide for their excellence. And the university has 58 different programs, from arts to poetry, architecture and engineering and medicine and science and medical technology. So all different courses. Just imagine when now the students will go back to their seats in the university, they will find one of the major buildings has been attacked or demolished. Not only this, but the atmosphere of the education atmosphere should be a conducive atmosphere for students to study and learn and aspire to improve their knowledge, not an atmosphere of attack and it's just giving them a sense that they are in a military zone. Imagine when a university is being attacked, how much more, because not all universities were attacked, but schools, all of the schools under the flag of the UN were attacked. 7 schools were attacked, and more than 45 Palestinians were killed inside the UN schools in the presence of the UN staff, unfortunately. Not only this, but also the ambulance cars. We have almost 17 paramedics has been killed. 2 doctors were killed. Many hospitals, 9 hospitals have been attacked. 4 clinics have been attacked. 13 schools were demolished. More than 52 mosques were demolished completely, and 130 mosques were demolished partially. So it's a war in everything. It's a war on human and stones, bricks, culture, poetry, history. It's not a war on militia, because the one who's paying the biggest price are the civilian population. And unfortunately, the civilian population, hatred inside their hearts will breed more hatred. And I think the one who's guiding this war and the one who's guiding this war is guiding the whole area into more and more anger and more cycle of violence in the future, because hatred will only breed hatred. And can you imagine when you're living with your family in your flat, or you're living in one apartment, and just to give our American brothers and sisters a sense of view of what Gaza Strip looks like. Gaza is a tiny strip of land located by the Mediterranean, 5 kilometers wide by 40 kilometers long. And because of this tiny area, 2.2 million people are living in this area. And most of the families are extended families, meaning the father living in the first floor, his son living in the second floor, his second son in the third floor, and so on and so forth. So you have buildings, 7-floor buildings, 6-floor buildings with the same family. Just imagine when you're living with your extended family and all of a sudden 1-ton bomb or 2-ton bomb just dropped on top of your home without any warning, without you doing anything wrong. You're just sitting there and the whole family just vanishes. Due to this relentless and inhumane bombing, we have 75 families completely were vanished from the civil registry here, and more than 500 families other were affected. Just today, in addition to the child that you've mentioned in the beginning of your program who was killed this morning, we have 4 people who were killed this afternoon. They are cousins from Abu Haddah family in Khamis. They were attacked near the market. They were going shopping with their friends. So 6 were injured from the same family and 3 were killed. Another attack in Zaytun area where 22 members of the same family were buried under the rubble, and they're still retrieving the bodies of the injured and the dead people till this moment. So this war is not exempting any part of Gaza Strip to be immune against attack, which make it an inhumane war, a war in civilization, a war in people who are just civilians, merely civilians. When you're speaking about 450 kids under the age of 16 being massacred over 1 month, this is completely a heinous crime against humanity. When you're speaking about more than 260 women being killed, when you speak about elderly above the age of 80, we have more than 90 who were killed. This is unbelievable, and I think President Obama and Prime Minister David Cameron from the UK and all world leaders should act now to stop this crazy war and stop it once and for all.
So another thing that gives this war the sense that it's over, at least on the Israeli side, is that the army today started investigations into various incidents that were controversial during the war. This is something Israel does every time after a military operation. And the internal army investigations, as you can assume, have 96% dismissal rate, which means that almost none of the investigations ever lead to an actual investigator going and doing the research. Most of them just get dismissed. In Kasled, the only soldier that ever went to jail for anything committed during the war, and you have to remember there was a widespread violations of the laws of international warfare, both according to the UN and according to Human Rights Watch. Only 1 soldier went to jail for 6 months for stealing a credit card from a Palestinian family. So these investigations are not very promising, and there was, again, of course, violations of the laws of warfare in this war. And another very important thing happened is that the parliament is going to pass in the coming weeks a new law that will redefine Gaza from a hostile territory, which is how Israel defines the Gaza Strip today, and which is why it can hold, but by its own laws, a siege on the Gaza Strip. It's going to now classify it an enemy territory, therefore clearing itself of any violations that were done to the people of Gaza, and basically making any claims for reparations for damage to homes that were hit accidentally invalid. And this law, whenever it's going to pass into effect, this reclassification, in the current version of the proposal, it is going to go into effect retroactively, starting on July 7th, the day before the war started. So basically what we're having here is that Israel launched a full-blown assault on the Gaza Strip, having killed 73% of the people killed are civilians. Of them, 260 are women, 79 are elderly, and more than 430 children. And according to the current laws of warfare in Israel, at least, if you are a civilian that was hit accidentally or your home was destroyed accidentally, you can claim damages. Now Israel is saying, we are clearing ourselves of all responsibility. No one will be able to hold us accountable for anything we did, because we are now calling Gaza an enemy territory, and in effect we're putting the law into effect retroactively.
Okay, Leah Tarachansky and Dr. Khamis Elessi, thank you both for joining us.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
And thank you for joining us on the Real News Network.